Twin, please come in. What was your name again? Hi!
Okay.
Welcome to the finale of an Unearthly podcast 17th season, episode 450, streaming live on the 10th of May 2022, featuring K-9, Jaws of Orthrus, written by Lindsay James and starring John Leeson as the voice of K-9, Keegan Joyce as Starkey, Philippa Coulthard as Georgie Turner, Daniel Weber as Darius Pike, and Robert Maloney as Alistair Griffin. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and I look forward to writing openings for episodes that actually have different cast members. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch, filling in as technical director for the day.
Yeah, and if you see a sudden delay in things, I'm being distracted by little cats demanding attention.
Alex Fireheart, who almost was going to give us the wrong summary today.
Second time was a charm.
Mad Matt Winchell is with us in spirit, but not in voice.
As he is working at close.
Yep.
For like 2 weeks in a row. I feel sorry for him.
Well, I think he was going to be with us next week, but we won't be here next week.
Yeah.
So how's everybody's week been?
Not too bad.
I started off so today I bought a discount membership for my local cinema, which I had not been to yet because of COVID. So now I basically get the Tuesday discount price every day, and I get either a free soda or a free popcorn. And I don't know if it's an annual or a lifetime membership. I'm assuming it's annual, but it doesn't say anywhere. So I basically need to go relatively frequently in order to make sure I'm, getting the best use out of what I paid for. Although apparently I do get a free ticket on my birthday.
Oh.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the closest equivalent to that in Australia that I'm aware of is that the cinema chain that has one in my hometown does a thing that like joining it is free, but the idea is that with every movie you see, you accrue points, and then eventually you can use those points to either get a free ticket or a discount.
MC did that when they first started their program, and then they realized they're like, hey, what if we charged people an annual cost in order to be able to use their points? Because fucking AMC.
Yeah. And in this it's more of like if you don't use the points within, I mean, to be fair, it's more like if you don't use the points within a year or so, they think but so because of COVID, a bunch of the points I had ended up going away. Because I was like, oh, there was like a point where
I believe that.
Where I lost like 400 points because I didn't go for so long. I think the longest stretch was like last year. I went like I saw stuff in January and then didn't see anything again until August.
Yeah. Well, COVID has screwed everybody up.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to Alex that this was my first time going to the cinema since Black Panther came out.
And I haven't gone to the cinema in a frickin' long time. And because of my deteriorating health, I'm not likely to anytime soon.
Yeah.
which sucks because there's always movies I want to see.
Hmm.
But to be honest, even when I was, marginally better, my local cinema was a freaking marathon. Because you'd always get the ticket, and it's always down to the theater at the far end of the theater, and it felt like a half-mile walk. And I'm there hobbling on a cane.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to be out there on a walker, like everybody's grandfather. Can you guys hear me okay?
There was like a
Uh,
brief moment where it like messed
yeah,
up.
yeah, I think my audio is developing a short again. I really need to go to like a
Oh,
cordless
I thought you
audio.
were going to say someone was chewing on the headphone cable.
No, I was trying to position myself a little better.
Mm.
Um, Other than that, it's been a pretty bland week for me. Aaron and I did try ordering out from a local Mexican restaurant, but that was a failure.
Ah.
When I say chimichanga, what does that mean to you?
Basically, small smothered burritos with red sauce. No,
See,
that's enchiladas. Chimichanga, actually, I don't know enough about to give you a straight answer.
chimichanga is a burrito that's been briefly deep fried so that it's crispy.
Mm.
Um,
I
what
knew
I
it was
got.
burrito-ish, but I wasn't quite sure the rest.
Well, then again, you live about as far from Mexico as possible. Well, at least while still being in the United States. Um,
You would be shocked at the Mexican population of Danbury. That's just never something if it was on the menu, I never ordered it.
yeah. Well, it's the difference between the burrito and the chimichanga is the chimichanga has this very crispy tortilla outside.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered the chimichanga meal, and no, it wasn't crispy. It was also 85 to 90% rice, with this tiny patch in one corner of the carne asada I ordered in the burrito.
Huh.
And the only things that it came with was, that shredded like lettuce and other stuff that they usually accompany like Mexican
Oh,
meals.
so it was a Tex-Mex restaurant at best.
Yeah, and it was and beans, baked bean or refried beans. And normally when you get a chimichanga, it comes with like guacamole, sour cream, that kind of thing. Not this. This was like I could have gotten a better burrito by going to Qdoba. And if those of you who don't know what Qdoba is, think Chipotle, but less spicy.
I always choose Qdoba over Chipotle.
So do
It's
I.
much better food.
Yeah, Chipotle tends to tear my insides out. Qdoba I can eat and go, ah.
That and they have the hot and spicy chicken. I mean the sweet the hot and sweet chicken, which is always a flavor combo I like.
Mm.
But that's neither here nor there.
But this was just a disappointment because, it's like the first time in like 3 years I'm getting actual restaurant Mexican. And it turns out to be,
Not great.
yeah. So that was kind of disappointing.
Mm.
We've also recently gone into a heat wave. We're having to run the AC now because it's freaking 90 something outside today. It's 76 now. I could turn it off, but I'm in the middle of the podcast now, and by the time I get done, Aaron will probably be home.
I think the highest I've seen it hit here so far is 85.
Oh no, it was 92 today. I'm like, fuck.
I'm sure I'll be there in a month.
It's like, it's May. What is it going to be like in August?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, these guys have been full of beans. The bigger one, Moo, discovered where we were stashing the cat food yesterday. managed to pull it off the shelf and tear into the bag. So Aaron comes home, and the entire pantry is just strewn with cat food. And also, apparently, they discovered one of Aaron's old sewing kits and managed to get thread unspooled and all over the living room. Aaron did not have a good day when she came home. And while they seem to have been quieter today, I haven't been up and about since I had lunch at 5, so I don't know. I usually eat my lunch, come back here, take a nap, and start working on the podcast, so... We'll see. Anybody else have anything interesting, or do we go right into it?
Not really.
So, Alex, at what time did you realize that you had watched the wrong episode?
Before I went to bed, I saw Matt post his thoughts, and I'm like,
when Matt posted his thoughts.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, did Matt watch the wrong thing? And then I went into and I went and looked at the episode and was like, oh Christ. So like thankfully it was before I went to bed. So it was like wake up, watch the right one. But the way the DVD is formatted, the the first episode that's listed has its episode title underneath it. The second one, the title is off to the side over the top of the third one. So I ended up watching the episode Dream Eaters and not knowing what the fuck this had to do with the title. And then realizing after the fact, oh shit. So I ended up only watching this episode once.
Yeah, that's not on our schedule till next year.
Yeah.
It would have been very interesting if you got to the summary and we were like, what the fuck? What did we watch?
Like, that's why I'm glad that I still had Discord open, because if I hadn't seen Matt's thoughts, I would have been like, yeah, I would have been screwed.
You would have been here flat-footed, looking at our title card, going,
Yeah.
I guess I'll give the short version of what Matt left for us to about his week. He's gotten his new computer that he's been waiting on, along with all the fixings. He did have to go to a funeral for his uncle from Friday to Monday. He got a series of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he's seen 2 movies that he'll be reviewing probably next time he's on the podcast.
Which will be in 2 weeks, hopefully, barring something happening. I know our Saturday game is now in the wind because just as Matt's getting back from working clothes, one of the other guys is going to have to start working clothes on Saturdays, and probably will be until at least August. So we're just like, oh, great. But yeah, hopefully we'll see an improvement in his computer on Wednesday nights, which will be nice.
Right? Yeah, that would be cool.
Well, that's when we do our supernatural ghost hunting gaming. And it's just like, all right, I'm in the van. Zaref's in the van. There's Barry. And now we have to wait a minute or two for Matt. And now that should not be, because it's usually the computer that's slowing him down.
Gotcha.
Anyway.
Is it the graphics card, I'm guessing?
Probably.
But yes, anyway.
Yes, moving on to tonight's show, we've got birthdays and we've got news. Mainly one piece of news, but it's the big news that you've probably already heard, unless you've been under a rock. Um, then we've got Geek Talk. And we got about 5 things in Geek Talk, but we'll try to keep it short. Then our episode summary, our final thoughts, and our ratings. Hey, maybe our week break I'll be able to do some catch-up viewing. Not bloody likely, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on to birthdays.
Good.
We have 3 birthdays of note. The first one is Richard E. Grant, who is known for playing the Doctor in a couple of things, including Curse of Fatal Death and Scream of the Shulka, the webisode that was going to continue Doctor Who until they decided to actually continue Doctor Who on television. He later would get a role in Doctor Who as Professor Simeon in The Snowmen. He turned 65. Next birthday we have is... Oops, shouldn't have that one going. Delia Derbyshire, who is known as, well, not the composer for the theme song, the person that first actualized it. If you don't know the story, one person wrote down the notes idly on a piece of paper, and it was up for her to make the sounds actually happen. And she's the one that decided to use the early electronic sound to basically make the theme what it was when you first heard it in '63.
Yeah.
Anyway, she... Oops. I'm having problems all the time here. Would have been 85, but she died in 2001 at 64. And our final listing is on the 7th, and also a posthumous name, and that is Valentine Dial, who played the Black Guardian originally in the Key to Time trilogy, which was, I think, 77, 78. And then again in 1983 for the Enlightenment trilogy, or the Black Guardian trilogy. He would have been 114, but he died in 1985 at the age of 87. So happy birthday, Richard, Delia, and Valentine. And now, the story everybody's been waiting for, and probably most people have heard. The new Doctor has been named, and it is Natkuti Gatwa. Did I say that right? I think I did.
Pronounced Ncuti Gatwa.
Ncuti Gatwa, okay. He is a... I'm actually trying to remember. I know he's part Scottish, part Rwandan. That's it.
I think it's a matter of like born in Rwanda, but mostly raised in Scotland.
To an extent,
Most likely.
His accent's still Rwandan. I noticed that. I heard an interview with him at the BAFTAs, and he doesn't sound Scottish. You know, unlike if you listen to David Tennant or Peter Capaldi, they sound Scottish. Not necessarily Highland Scottish, but Scottish. But he has that odd, I don't want to say a lilt or the odd rhythm to his speech. That,
here we go. So the family moved, actually, they moved to Scotland when he was 2 during the Rwandan genocide. But I would assume he grew up around his own family and picked up their speaking mannerisms primarily.
Yes. However, you know, that is his natural voice. I don't know if he has learned to speak other styles. I'm hoping.
From what I've heard, the show that he's most known for, Sex Education on Netflix, he does a completely different accent, and it's one of
Okay.
those things if you would not be able to tell
Hmm.
that it's
Perfect.
not his natural accent. So yeah.
Perfect. I mean, he does come with some things. He won a Scottish BAFTA. Um, for I think it was Sex Education, and he had a raft of nominations in Sunday's BAFTA awards. I forgot to check to see if he won.
I think they were
Wiki
all
says he earned.
nominations.
Wiki said he earned 3. Oh no, it says nominations. So,
Yeah.
I
I think
don't
like
see any wins on Wiki. So either it has not been updated or
yeah.
he did not win.
I I feel like from what I heard, it was both him and
Oh, never mind.
Russell were up for BAFTAs, but neither
Correct.
won.
Okay.
Okay.
So he was nominated for a small raft, but
Mm.
didn't win. But he still has the Scottish BAFTA he can hit directors over the head with.
Which I actually saw speculation that it might have been that that's why they announced it now, on the off chance they could get the boost of him winning.
That and
That
that gave him a chance to hype it at the actual BAFTA show.
that makes
Yeah.
sense because RTD was referring to was saying about how, like, oh yeah, they got a free press conference, and meanwhile everybody on the internet is like, they announced it via a tweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe
after
the
Joe,
tweet should have gone up during the announcement and not before.
mm,
You know, it
yeah,
also could have been a last minute decision.
well, yeah, I also heard speculation that maybe they were trying to get ahead of a leak.
Oh, that could be too. Somebody
Which
was
I could buy that. Because I feel like they probably planned to do a similar reveal to what they did for Jodie. But then that got kind of scuppered because maybe there was going to be a leak or there was worries about a leak. So they were just like, fuck it, just say it. Like apparently he's known since, I think they said February. So
Yes,
they at least
February.
kept, yeah, so they at least managed to keep it secret for that long.
Oh yeah,
A couple of months.
Russell lost to Kaylee Llewellyn for In My Skin. He was up for It's a Sin.
Hmm.
I'm just kind of going through the BAFTAs right now.
Gotcha. But one thing that I did find was interesting, because especially I guess they wanted to get this out before all of the anti-diversity people came in with accusations or whatever, but they wanted to make it very clear that they, rather than intentionally casting for any sort of demographic diversity, RTD had basically said they thought they had already picked someone, but they had already scheduled Shooty for one last audition. So they let him come in for the audition, and then they ended up giving it to him because it was such a good audition. So I do feel bad for the people who auditioned before him, because now they're all wondering, was it going to be me? But yeah, they did not like go out of their way to recruit any specific person.
Okay, and Gatwa was up for male performance in a comedy program.
For the third
And
year in a row, apparently.
yep, and he lost to Jamie Demetrio for Staff Lats Flats for Channel 4. So,
I will say this is funny that it only occurred to me when someone else brought it up into relation to themselves. But this is the first time that they have cast a doctor that is younger than me. when they announced them.
Odd
he's
feeling,
turning,
isn't it?
he's
Yeah.
turning he's turning 30 this year. I turned 32 this year.
Oh, I was thinking, I was like, I couldn't quite remember your age. I knew you were younger than me, but I couldn't remember by how much. And I was like, please tell. It was like, this is where we find out. Is he younger than all of the podcast members?
Yeah.
He was born the same year as my sister.
Yeah.
I think
So, like,
mine
he's
was Matt Smith, so
He's younger than my sister, actually. So yeah.
so yeah, like
it makes you feel like an old man, doesn't it?
mm, yeah, like he'll be 30 by the time anything he's in actually airs, but yeah, he's 29 at the moment. So he's not the youngest because that's still Matt Smith. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's older than Peter Davison was when he started, but because he was 28, I think, and Matt Smith was 27, so he's like third youngest.
Davison was 29 when he was cast.
So same age then.
Yeah, there's a lot of pictures of him and Russell mugging
That's
it
assuming
at
that
the
whatever.
bathtub.
That's assuming that whatever website Google stole its notes from did the math properly.
Yep, but it's probably accurate. So like I said, he comes with one major hit show under his belt, which is about standard for a doctor.
It comes with comedy chops, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I
Is that
don't.
what they're going to be going with it? Are they going to be making it funny? The best ones can pull off comedy and drama.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not he has the drama chops. Apparently, he has done Shakespeare, but I think every actor over the age of 8 in the British Isles has done Shakespeare at least once.
That's how you graduate. It's how you graduate from acting school. You have to be in some form of Shakespeare. I'm pretty sure. Or it's at least a qualifier.
That's true. Yeah, he's also probably done it on stage. I'm just looking at film.
Yes, he has a larger stage presence than he has a film presence, which again is not unusual for Britain.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would like to point this out. What is it about Doctor Who casting that goes for a Scottish actor? Every other Doctor?
And if you only count actors who've been in the show, meaning not in movies, then that goes as far back as the 80s.
No, it breaks down.
You get six was not Scottish, 7 was, 9 was not Scottish, 10 was, 11 was not Scottish, 12 was, 13 was not Scottish, 14 is. But you can't go back to 5 or earlier. I'm pretty sure Davison is not Scottish.
Yeah, and again though there's the double pause because McCoy and then McGann and Eccleston were not Scottish.
Yeah, that's why I said only if you if you only count the show and not movies.
But yeah, Baker wasn't Scottish. Pertwee definitely wasn't Scottish. Pretty sure Troughton wasn't Scottish, and I'm pretty sure Hartnell wasn't Scottish either.
Right.
At this point, really, they just need a Welsh and an Irish, and they've got it covered.
I'm still saying somebody from the colonies. So I know they've disbanded the Empire, but the Empire was not fully disbanded when they started the show. Is all I'm saying.
Oh, I could possibly see a Canadian or an Australian.
I was thinking like Indian.
Indian
Pakistani
would be possible
with their original accent. But I'm very curious to see what accent Shooty goes with here.
Especially given that, like, we've only really had Northern Scottish and, like, a London
Well, yeah,
sort of
we've
And
had
RP.
London Estuary. Um,
Mm,
we've had Northern
mm,
for Eccleston, who did a Liverpool Manchester accent, and then Whitaker, who did the Sheffield.
mm.
I'm not quite sure where Matt Smith's accent was from. He was from
I
the
don't know what
Midlands.
Pertwee's accent was because I don't think it was.
I think he was from the West Country.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it wasn't standard RP. Actually,
No.
yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, I imagine either way they're gonna want something that's fairly audible to people who haven't made any effort. Hell, well, Jodie Whittaker, apparently a lot of Americans were like, I can't understand a word she's saying, but at least the Brits, I'm sure, could understand her. Whereas a full-on Rwandan accent, I'm sure they would get letters. But a good actor knows how to draw the line there anyway, so I'm not worried about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, even like, you know,
I
I would assume
I stand
Capaldi
corrected.
probably toned his accent down.
Oh,
Pertwee was from Chelsea in London.
ah,
So it was just the West London accent as opposed to the East
got you.
London.
It's like a different borough.
Yeah, well, you know, the accent that we're used to is what they call the estuary accent, which is the east side of London.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got West Side and Surrey and that whole area west and southwest of London that has its own, an entirely different accent. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got North London accent, which is completely different from those two. It's kind of like being in New York, where you
That,
go
that's
five
why I
different
said like
directions.
kind of like different boroughs.
Yep.
Mm.
5 different
Although, yeah.
locations about a mile from each other in 5 different accents. Yeah, London's the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens with especially older cities that, you know, kind of grew and reconglomerated.
Right.
But that was an aside. That was definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I have
Yeah.
no issues with this guy. He comes with good things.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be under Russell T, who, you know, did wonders with Tennant and Eccleston.
Oh, yeah, you had some issues with visual issues you mentioned before the podcast, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure I like the blonde hair that he's currently spouting because it makes him look like a bit of a punk. And I've always seen the Doctor to be more of a respectable, you know, character.
I mean, I doubt he'd have it in the
If you look,
show.
yeah, if you look at the picture that they have from him in Sex Education, he has dark hair and he doesn't have a mustache. And I think he looks fine like
Oh,
that. You
that's
put
that.
him.
I didn't realize the photo there was of that because he looks like half his current age in it.
Oh yeah, that's
Well,
from
yeah.
you put that in a suit,
Mm-hmm.
um, or you know at least some kind of regular semi-formal outfit,
He
and
might be
you.
someone who needs the mustache to look his age, though.
I honestly I don't like the mustache. I don't
Mm.
know. I don't like the Doctor with a mustache. I'm not sure.
Fair. I was gonna say that's the widest mustache I've ever seen, but I think that's just selfie cam. I don't think that's how it would look under a normal camera.
I don't
Mm.
know. Actually, no, that is how it looks. Um, he has one of these really wide grins. which
Mm.
I'm fine with. I mean, you go to Wide Grins, first thing that comes to mind is Tom Baker.
Mm-hmm.
But people that have wide grins like that don't need mustaches. They're automatically, you're drawn to the teeth, not the lips. And yeah, I mean, you put him in a suit, or like I said, something, that makes him look a little less street level. Or if you want, you can go the leather jacket look, but I think he would look good in a suit. And the way that looks there, get rid of the headband. And yeah, I think he would be great as a doctor. But then you go up to the picture up top with the blonde hair and the mustache, and you're expecting an earring.
I don't see it personally, but
that doesn't look like doctor to me.
Hmm.
I could see it in the picture below, but not in the picture above. But what worries me is this is what he's looking like right now. And I don't know if they're filming yet or not, but if so,
Mhm.
then that's going to be his look.
I forget if they're filming it or if it's a matter of they finally production is underway kind of a thing.
They
Pr-
might be.
production usually means filming, but other than I think I saw one thing that said that production seemed to be underway, but I
But
can't remember what the source was, and I haven't seen anything about production since then. So
yeah,
they might have been wrong.
I think they were actually in the scripting stage.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's more Russell T's working on it now, but they
Mm-hmm.
haven't filmed stuff
But the
yet.
brass tacks, do I have issues with him being black? Nope.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he can act.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in his style
Now,
than anything else.
now, what's his TARDIS going to look like?
That's another question. We know the old TARDIS set was disassembled.
And we know we didn't like that one, so.
Oh, fuck, I did not like that one.
Also, his Sonic.
Mm.
Since they seem to be doing a new Sonic per Doctor, more or
Yeah.
less, nowadays.
Well, that keeps them selling new Sonics.
True.
But I still say the same thing about Jodie Whittaker's TARDIS. You look and you see that, and the first thing that goes through my head is, we need to construct more pylons. It looks like some kind of bizarre fucking StarCraft, God, Protoss design, and I'm not into that. Now, Russell T was fond, of course, the crazy Tenant era console. And my preference would have been for the Capaldi era console. I thought that was the greatest console that they've come out with in the new series.
My Discord is in red, so I'm closing my Twitch window, so
Okay.
I don't know if anyone's monitoring chat. Nobody's in there yet, but I'm no longer monitoring it.
All right. But anyway, this guy has this. We're going to have to see how this guy does and what he looks like after the regeneration, because I'm fully interested. He has the talent, and Russell's known to bring the writers. And if we can get good writers and good talent for the first time in like 10 years, Doctor Who will be an actual show to watch again.
I do just hope that Russell included some drama in the audition.
I hope so. Okay, so...
And that's not a knock. That's just we literally have nothing to go off for his drama chops.
Yep. So, moving on to Big Finish news. There are 2 new releases from Big Finish. The first is the Ninth Doctor Adventures Back to Earth, with Christopher Eccleston in the lead role. And the second is the War Doctor Begins Battlegrounds with Jonathan Carley, pulling off a young John Hurt. And of course, that one also has Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks. So both of those were released within the past week. Moving on, as I'm closing a few windows, to Geek Talk, and somebody wanted to talk about Moon Knight.
Yes. All right. So go off my pre-written notes here. So we got the first episode was the most experimental, and I've talked about that one in the past. But it laid seeds for mysteries that continued all the way through the show. If you don't know anything about Moon Knight, basically he's a hero with multiple personalities who deals with Egyptian gods. The Disney Plus show takes this to the next level in two ways. The first is Oscar Isaac basically said if he was going to do this, the different personalities were all going to have completely different accents, and the story was rewritten to accommodate this request. Actually, for similar reasons, they set it in London. That was mainly because they realized that the MCU mostly consists of New York at this point, so they wanted to move this story. I shouldn't say mainly, but at least the origin is in London. The second is that they actually base this off of at least a basic understanding of dissociative identity disorder, the actual condition of having multiple personalities, rather than it just being something that Moon Knight pulled out of his ass. There's still some bullshit involved because it's multiple personalities on screen. But on a scale of 1 to 10, if 5 was the average amount of bullshit that you see with DID in fiction, this is about a 2 or a 2.5, which is by far the best I've ever seen. The most influential chunk of the story is Moon Knight's main two personalities coming to terms with one another and with his wife. It never quite reaches the highs of episode 1 again, although it does try at times. And some people complained there was a superpowered fight in the climax, but I can only assume that those are people who have never seen a Marvel property before. Overall, I would say this is a solid watch, and I'd recommend it to most MCU fans. But if you've experienced domestic violence, you may want to go into the second half with caution. I tried to rank it compared to the other MCU shows, but I have trouble picking between them. I will say that when I compare it to shows like Hawkeye, Loki, and WandaVision, I noticed that the secondary heroine that was introduced, Layla, does not seem to have her personality as fleshed out as the ones in the other shows. Probably because she's not like the quirky type. She's very much like, she's the quote-unquote straight person, not sexuality, but in terms of that role in comedy within this story. So there's not as much chance for her to shine as someone like... I'm forgetting her name in Hawkeye. It's a different type of character. And that's all I pretty much have to say.
All right. Moving on to the next thing on streaming. Star Trek Picard finished its run last week for season 2. And it was a better season than season 1. But it still has some issues. Basically, looking back on it, it was almost like if they had taken the movie First Contact and stretched it into an entire season. You have time travel, you have the Borg, you have... Well, and then also threw in Q as another enemy. It was very action-oriented, with them trying to stop this manipulation Q did that changed the world into this totalitarian nightmare, and it all strung back to basically 2 years from now. So they were really cutting it close. And while it's interesting, there were times where it did seem to kind of lag into itself, because it was also trying to explore Picard's psyche, and some of that got very draggy-on-y.
Ah,
It was not wholly bad. I enjoyed it, but again, this was something only if you were a diehard fan would you get some enjoyment out of this. Watching John Delancey play Q one more time, and getting to see the actress that played Seven of Nine on screen, that kind of thing. It's more
guessing an open-minded diehard fan, because I've also seen people who are like, "Oh, every episode ruins Star Trek or whatever."
yeah.
The fan
Well,
hyperbole.
first of all, there are going to be naysayers regardless, just because
Hmm.
this is still new Trek Bad Robot, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. With my next thing that I'm talking about. But like I said, I still found it enjoyable. I didn't find it to be terrible. I just didn't find it to hit that same level that you expected from a Next Generation episode. So let's talk about something that did. Following on the heels of Star Trek Picard was the first episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Now, if you hadn't heard of this show, it is a spin-off from Star Trek Discovery in the fact that the season 2 of Star Trek Discovery had Anson Mount as Captain Pike. The same Pike from the original pilot of Star Trek way back in like 64, 65. This then continues his voyages on the USS Enterprise following his season 2 appearance. And this technically would make it the longest pilot to series show in the history of television, since the pilot was in 63, 64, and it came out in 2022. But it is the Enterprise, and you've got Spock, Cadet Uhura, um, Nurse Chapel, Dr. Mbenga, all of which, and Transporter Operator Kyle, all of which were from the original series, recast, of course. But from pretty much the starting point of this show to the end, it feels, for the first time in years, like I'm watching Star Trek. Literally, if you took the other characters out and replaced them with original series cast, you took out Pike, you put in Kirk, it would be an original series episode. It felt like Star Trek from the moment it started, and it continued to feel like Star Trek the entire run. I was very pleased with this first episode. Now, again, there are people out there booing, going, "Oh my god, Strange New Worlds is terrible. It's ruining Star Trek. Yeah, Vulcan's showing romantic intent." No. Get your heads out of your asses, people. Spock was engaged to this character in the original series. And then she broke it up in that classic scene where she pitted Kirk against Spock.
Hmm.
So yes, they do tend to have fiancés, dates, etc. Do you really think that little Vulcans only come from that one 7-year itch Vulcans get? No! Deal with it! But the other characters, the only one I had questions with was Nurse Chapel, who felt a little bit too different from her original series version. But even that quickly got backlogged as the episode went on.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I highly recommend this. This is Star Trek once again, and it even starts with those traditional words: space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise, and you hear that And anybody who is an old fan just gets that shiver down their spine.
So this was its true first 5-year mission.
Yes. Well, basically, the original captain of the Enterprise was Robert April. But I think he was only there for like a year before he got promoted, and they put Pike in his place. And then Pike got promoted, stepped down, and they replaced him with Kirk. I don't know if April was just there for the shakedown cruise or what. But yeah, this was Pike and crew, and then Kirk took over when Pike decided to retire. And then had his accident.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you're starting to see the people who would become the Star Trek main cast, and it's kind of awesome. I'm still waiting for them to step on it, because anytime you go to a prequel like this, there's always going to be that moment they step on it and go, oops.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. All right, so that will take us from that over to everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yep. So we'll be talking about 2 multiverse movies in a row. Because Everything Everywhere All at Once is a multiverse movie as well.
And those
Doctor
of you
Strange
that's
2.
been on social media are well aware, thanks to a certain actress blasting Doctor Strange
Mm-hmm.
while trying to pimp this movie.
Which is funny because I didn't know about that until Bill told me after I'd gotten out of the movie, so I must have missed that. But yeah. Honestly, this movie is amazing. Think like it, it obviously doesn't have the budget that Doctor Strange 2 does, so the multiverse stuff doesn't get like too ridiculous. And honestly, I forget what the hell they tried to come up with for the explanation of the multiverse in Marvel, but in this particular movie, the explanation you essentially get is that every decision you make creates an alternate universe where you made the opposite decision, essentially. Which is funny because one of them allows it's like, what if this woman had, stayed at home and not gone off with the actor who played Short Round in Temple of Doom and had,
Every time you walk into a Baskin Robbins, you create 32 new universes.
See, I've always hated that theory from a fourth dimensional perspective.
Of course, I will say they say that, but then there are some really, really out there ones. Which I won't really spoil because the reveal of them is kind of funny. But there are some that are like way more out there. It's just that they can't be as out there as something like Doctor Strange will do because that's got Disney money behind it compared to this, which had a much lower budget. And is mostly a martial arts movie.
Yeah.
In that way. Like, there's interesting ways they do it because essentially the thing is that the conceit is that the characters in the main universe we're following can tap into skills that alternate universe versions of them have. In some cases, that is just straight up, okay, this alternate universe version of, and you have to earn it. You don't just go, oh, I'm going to take this and you get it. You have to there's some tech involved and you have to do a specific thing to trigger that specific universe so you can tap into it. But it's like there's some are just straight up, oh, in this timeline you did you learned martial arts. So okay, we'll tap into that so you can defend yourself. And then there are other ones where they'll tap into alternate skills that they ultimately bring back into a fight way, but in an unconventional way, which are very fun. It's kind of funny because, like, while this movie almost brought me to tears at one point because of just some of the elements of the story, it's also very, like, tonally weird. It's like there's some moments that wouldn't be out of place in a Deadpool movie. Like certain things that someone gets the shit beaten out of them with. Um, that I won't mention because it's not really a spoiler, but I'm not going to say it anyway. But yeah, like either way, like this is a movie worth watching. Um, and it's funny. I only found out beforehand that the actor who played Short Round was in this. I would not have guessed that he was 50 because he looks like he's in his like mid 40s in this. So he's aged well. He could all I also kind of joke he grew up in a way, he's aged in a way that he could basically play like Jackie Chan's younger brother. Like he couldn't double for Jackie Chan. They're distinctly different, but he looks similar enough that if you like wanted them to be related in a movie, I'd buy it. And Michelle Yeoh is great as well. I think like them two and Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, are the only two actors that I like off the top of my head really knew. The grandpa I knew as well, but I'm trying to remember what his name is. I think it's the guy who played the lead sort of sorcerer villain in Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, he is really old now.
Oh yeah, he doesn't do much, but yeah, he is there. He's mostly in a wheelchair for it. But yeah, he's fun as well in the stuff he gets. But yeah, I would definitely say that this is a movie worth seeing if you're into like comedy action movies, essentially, because that's more what it is. It's not as much as there's sci-fi elements to it. It's more about the comedy and the action than that. Also, I mean, like the story is there as well, but yeah. And I really enjoyed the story. I would say with the visuals, you do not need to see it in the cinemas. If you would rather wait until this comes out on streaming or just like able to rent it somewhere, then I would say wait for it until then if COVID is making you like iffy about going to the movies.
Oh my god, that is him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think James Hong was still actually acting. I thought he had retired.
I mean, again, he doesn't really do like too much, or at least he doesn't do anything physically intense anyway. That they couldn't have just used a stunt double for. It's mostly a lot of talking. With him, which I guess is how they got around. Also, I don't know when this movie was actually filmed because this might be one of those things where it's a movie that got delayed. That might have been filmed like years ago.
He's been sick for a while.
I was going to say, apparently he got a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame recently. And people, like someone I know was kind of scared because they almost thought it was an announcement that he died. It's like, no, he's still going.
Well, yeah, he's older than.
Filming began in January 2020 and wrapped up during the onset of COVID in March.
He's 93. He's 93 years old.
Hmm. So going by that, he would have been like probably 90, I guess. Or
Mm-hmm.
Apparently,
like
Aquafina from
like
Shang-Chi was
89 or
going to be
something.
in it, but there were scheduling conflicts.
Ah. Well, yeah, those probably would have been filmed around the same time, I think, because both of those got delayed. Yeah. Anyway, it's worth checking out. Um, if that kind of thing seems like it would be in your wheelhouse, but yeah, again, if it's a matter of like you just would not really rather risk it with COVID and everything going to the cinemas, I would say this is definitely a movie that you don't need to see on a big screen. Um, but yeah. Anyway,
Very
I
happy
think
my
that's all
cinema
I've.
only had one other person in it, and at least for the summertime, I can count on it staying that way.
So that takes us to the final thing in our Geek Talk,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
Yep.
Alex, do you want to give your thoughts first?
Yeah, I can go first. It's funny because it was nice to see two movies with a multiverse concept that go completely different directions. I mean, again, part of that is also budget, but I while I really enjoyed this movie, this was I feel like this might have been the first MCU movie where while I was watching it, there were aspects of it that I'm like, not sure how keen I am on this particular decision. um, and like, I mean, like the acting's good. The It's one of those things where like the story had me, but the more I thought about it, and like just certain elements of the story, I'm like, did we really have to? But oh well, sort of thing. Um, I'll put it this way as well. I was not entirely sure why they would have gone with Raimi for this. Having seen the movie, I know why they went for, for Sam Raimi. Because while it's not all over the movie, there are horror elements in there to enough of a point where I'm like, yeah, you would have needed a horror director, no matter who it was. Um, and like getting a horror director who's already done superhero movies does sound like a good idea. um,
Yeah, well, mind you, Raimi isn't exactly a horror director. He's a horror comedy director.
well, right, yeah.
He has that layer of cheese that he liberally coats
But that,
every
I mean,
movie he does.
the MCU is the same way, so.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's a distraction. I'm saying that's a qualifier.
Hmm.
Hmm. Um, but yeah,
It's
it
the
was
same
interesting
reason.
being in.
It's the same reason DC chose Nathan Fillion to play the break apart kid, because there's nobody else who will act that you don't have to look at him and go, no, you need to cheese it up a bit. Nathan Fillion will walk in and immediately apply the right amount of cheese.
Walk in and throw the hammer,
Hmm.
literally.
That's the only role he's ever
Yeah.
had where the director went, play it cheesier.
uh, um, yeah, it was interesting. It is it is one of those funny things where a review I was watching brought up the notion of it being kind of annoying that some of the multiverses you get snippets of are kind of more interesting looking than some of the ones we actually like stay in
Yeah, because they're more
for any length
expensive
of
to film.
time. Yeah, it is one of those things of like, well, yeah, I kind of let it slide a bit just because like, you know, they have to actually film the thing where it's like, okay, we'll just put this overlay over New York to make it look like this weird thing rather than all
Like Hell
um
Universe or Dinosaur Universe would have been challenging for the plot.
yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, it's interesting that like it's one of those annoyingy sort of detriments of like, well shit, we're gonna have to introduce really cool ones, but then not actually stay in them for any length of time because that'll make the budget go through the roof. um If anything, I'm just glad we did get snippets of them rather than just nope, it's only the ones we're spending any actual length of time in that you'll see at all. Um
See, with Sam Raimi in charge, I want to see them go to Deadite, New York.
I'm
You have the
honestly
superheroes only.
surprised.
It'd be much like Marvel Zombies, but a lot more poignant.
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of surprised they never went to a Marvel Zombies type
Because
Damage,
universe.
they covered it in the
In
Mhm.
What If, yeah.
in What If.
Damage Strange, we deadited the world. Oh, jeez.
uh, um,
Oh, come on. You want them to see the Punisher who turns around and goes, "I'll swallow your soul."
oh, I will say, I have seen people say that that people have watched this movie without having watched WandaVision and they got it, but I feel like this is something
Oh yeah, yeah.
where
This is
you
kind of a
kind of
sequel
need
to
to have
WandaVision.
watched. Yeah. So like like they give you enough. I'll say this much. Yeah, like they give you enough that if
They
you
made a
didn't
point to
know,
reference things from like Infinity War that they assume you've watched. Like if you haven't watched Infinity
yeah.
War and Endgame, they're basically like, fuck you, no Marvel movies for you. But
Yeah. But it's definitely like um it's definitely one where like you wouldn't have to have watched What If. I almost thought a What If version of Steven was going to be in this, but arguably he's not.
oh no, that one definitely
Um
could not have been in this.
yeah.
What if will help you understand certain characters, but they made a point that they're not the versions from What If.
Yeah.
And if you
Um
watch the movie, you'll understand why.
yeah. Um yeah, like certain decisions I was still iffy about. At least two character reveals I was like, "Oh, okay. That's an interesting use of that character, but we'll see where this goes." But yeah. Uh Not really much I can go into beyond that without going into spoilers. But yeah, I would say this is one where if you have the opportunity to see it on a big screen, even if that's just like if you have a projector at home or something that you can watch it on a massive, on like basically watch it on a wall or something. Like this is something that it was made to be seen on the big screen. So I'm glad at the very least, I'm glad I got to see it in cinemas.
Okay, so from myself, what to add to that? Yeah, I definitely. So the two main strengths I saw in this movie, were the score. They really pull out stops with the score, especially with like the cameo characters. And also the horror directing aspects. So I know Alex had talked to me about the visuals before I watched it, in the sense of like it feeling that they overshadowed the plot. But honestly, the visuals to me felt like every other movie Doctor Strange is in. Whereas things like some of the horror movie aspects really felt new for a Marvel movie. Like these are shit that Sam Raimi's been doing since the 70s and 80s, but this is a new context for it to be in. And of course, Evil Dead did not have $1 billion budget. Um, so that is different there. Um, what else? So I wish we got a little bit more out of some of the cameo characters. But on the other hand, it probably would have detracted from the plot, so I understand why not.
Yeah.
There was only one person who I was like, oh, that was kind of a Deadpool-esque absurdist death. Like they took a horrifying moment and kind of like made it comedic the next second. But the rest I felt more like a comic book event, like one of those events where you see like Thanos just show up and like wreck shit. Like there are scenes where it's kind of like that with a certain character. Multiple scenes like that actually. Um, Baron Mordo, I don't think that's a spoiler, like mentioning him as a spoiler because he was in trailers. I don't think he should have been in this movie because I think him being here caused people to have expectations that they would not have had otherwise, that the movie does not live up to.
Yeah.
And then there were a few things where they're like, we need to explain this, but we don't have a good way to explain it, so we're going to add in this kind of awkward scene here that feels out of place in the moment, but we don't have a better place to put the scene. Those are probably my two biggest complaints, other than something kind of minor I was talking to Alex about off screen that would be a tangent. So I'm just gonna say, mostly I really enjoyed this movie. If you enjoy horror movies and MCU movies, I think it's a perfect fit. Um, I mean, if it's not really that different from everything else that's had Wong and Doctor Strange in it in terms of tone otherwise. So if you enjoyed No Way Home, if you enjoyed Infinity War and Endgame, then yeah, watch this as well. Although, yeah, there's also some heartbreaking moments with Wanda's plot. Oh, and my final word is that people who think that Doctor Strange was not the main character of this movie were not paying attention to character arcs. Because he has a solid arc from literally the first minute of the movie until the very end, and it's all about that arc. So anybody saying otherwise just is not paying attention. And that's my final thought.
There is one appearance in here which would be a spoiler, but not really if you know Sam Raimi.
Oh, yes, that's right. I almost was going to mention him. Yes, he is. He's in the movie, and he's doing something that's kind of familiar to him. I'm not going to say more than that about it.
I'm just glad Raimi is still inserting him.
Yep. I was kind of wishing he was going to be in No Way Home, but he wasn't.
All right, so
Right. So
that
on
will
to
take
our
us.
summary, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, I was realizing that I didn't have a bottle of water on me, but oh well. Should be okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Yep.
Was that yep, I'm ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well then, 3, 2, 1, start.
Okay, we open on K-9 seemingly having shot at the lead villain Drake, and the bulk of the episode is people arguing over whether or not K-9 actually did it. Eventually, it becomes clear that there's evidence of another K-9 running around who messes with their car and shoots at Darius later on when they're trying to get away from Drake. And finally, it is revealed that the K-9 that has tried to kill the kids is not, because the real K-9 shows up and takes him out, which turns out to have been made by Inspector Drake under the name Operation Orthrus. Georgie's mum comes along and says that the project is being scrapped, and we end the episode with the real K-9 chasing Darius around for still accusing the real K-9 of trying to shoot him. And that's it.
Right? You did that in less than a minute.
Yeah, because they're like, I realized as I was watching, most of this I can just summarize in a sentence of they back and forth argue that about whether this is actually K-9 or not.
Well, that's because mostly this was a character drama.
Right, yeah. Like, I don't say that as a detriment just so much as it was easy to summarize.
Okay. So, I say, slipping back to the bit, let's talk about what we liked about the episode, and you are first. Well, first, Matt's first.
Yeah.
So, Bill, if you're awake, Bill.
Bill's BRB'd at the moment.
Well, then
I'll
I'll
read
pull
it
out.
out.
Okay, you do that, because
Yep.
I'd have to
So
pull up the Discord.
Matt's favorite overall aspect was likely someone else's pick too, but holy cow, the writing was great on this one. The characters feel like they're continuing to develop and interact more naturally, and they've not forgotten still that K-9, while limited at times, still has some emotions. Characters have some great one-on-one development time between each other, and most of it focused on the new footage of K-9 apparently attacking one of the big bads in public. And yeah, I guess I'd agree with that in the sense that, like, yeah, as you were saying before, that this is more of a character study, so it's a lot more we actually get some character in this.
Yeah, it seems to be
Because
character development focused on K-9 and Darius. Mostly Darius. The little bit
which is fun.
between Georgie and Starkey, but where
Mm,
they each have their moment of, I need to figure this out. But
mm,
it's largely Darius's ball.
mm. Which is kind of hilarious when you consider the fact that most of the time we're ragging on him of being like the one who doesn't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like somehow they retroact and, like, like they somehow could hear into the future and heard us and remain this. Or just that, like, they must have known, they must have realized at this point, oh yeah, shit, what's he even doing here? We should probably give him something to do.
Well, that was part of
Oh.
it, is they had spent so much time establishing others. At this point, they're just like, okay, who haven't we properly worked on? And they're like, Darius. Okay, so let's
Hmm.
give him his own episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is one of those funny things, is that's the to a point, I almost wonder if that's the detriment of having these mostly be self-contained half-hour episodes. Whereas,
Well,
like, uh Sarah Jane was like 2 episodes per story and less stories.
mm-hmm.
So there'd usually be like a character focused thing every other story.
Well, they've shown they're not afraid to do two-parters when they felt the
Mm,
need for it, but it is nice to note that they're still playing by a evolving character Bible rather than a static
yeah,
one established at the beginning of the season.
right.
All right. Do you have anything more to add to it?
Um
Or has Matt pretty much hit the only good thing on the head?
um Let's see. I guess I'll go with the acting because, like, he was covering the writing. I'll go with the acting because it's.
I will
I
say
guess
most of the acting.
yeah, because like I guess by virtue of by virtue, and it's kind of funny because it's a more character driven episode. You could argue that's why majority of the acting is better because they actually have something to work with.
Mhm.
Like, we're not doing the silly let's try to scare K-9 stuff. It's just like, you know, I would even go so far as to like, what? I'll actually hold off on that comment for something later. But yeah, like you actually get conversations between like again, like most of the episode is just conversations between characters. And with what they're talking about and everything, you actually get some more character out of them. And it's like, yeah, some of these actors. And it probably helps as well that this episode is where it is. If it was any earlier, it might probably not have worked because they hadn't really like slipped into the characters properly yet. Whereas this many episodes in, you can get away with it because now it's like, okay, we've kind of gotten them to a certain point. Now let's just give them an episode where they can just talk.
Yep. Was that Bill coming back?
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm back.
Okay. So, Bill, what good things do you find about the episode?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of what's not taken.
I
Um,
was gonna say we've discussed writing and acting, so
mhm. But I mean, throughout that, it was all like all this talk about the characters and everything else as part of it.
yeah,
Um, but I guess this part wasn't really. Well, yeah, I guess this part wasn't really covered in that. I feel like all the characters had space. All the like characters on the good side anyway have kind of
Thank
space to
you.
breathe and embody themselves. They all have kind of their own, their own moment or their own chance to be their own characters rather than it really focusing on one or two and neglecting others. If they just all have their own kind of
mm,
space to exist and to be their own character.
mm. Which is kind of amazing when you think this is just a one-off half-hour episode.
Hmm.
And I will take that and expand to include Georgie's mother in that.
Okay.
She actually came across as a more believable character too.
I feel
Um,
like this character kind of does suggest that she's more on the side of good than the fascist. Well, I mean, she's still supporting the fascist government, but
Yeah,
but it makes her more gray.
yeah, she's on the side of
yeah,
neutral.
yeah. She's willing to question stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that makes her a more believable character.
Mm,
And
Hmm.
whereas before she was very one-dimensional, this did give her more of a 2-3 dimensional feel.
Hmm.
All right, so that's what we liked. What we didn't like about the episode, and I have two
We're
things.
starting.
Let's see if somebody brings them up.
Okay. So
Matt first.
yep. So Matt says he felt the pace was a bit breakneck. While it gave good time for character development, which was sorely needed, it gave very little time to the K-9 going rogue story that it was all pinned on, leaving the resolution a bit more rushed. I
yeah.
kind of disagree about breakneck.
Well, yeah. Breakneck's probably a bit
Mhm.
exaggerating, but I get what he means. Like again, like
Like
I
technically,
got
not a lot happens for the first half of the episode, but there's
yeah.
a lot of setup.
Yeah. I mean, like, I did get through the summary in under a minute because a lot of the the bulk of the episode is just talking
Hmm.
and like a tiny bit of moving the plot forward, but it's mostly just talking. I mean, it's funny because I would not argue that this should have been a two-parter. This is one where I'm like, no, this is better off
Hmm.
being a one-off. It's just a bit
But maybe
A
the
bit of a
final act,
clunky ending,
maybe the final
arguably.
act could have used an extra 5 minutes.
Mm.
By the way, as an aside here, um, I know I was originally watching this episode from the copy that Alex was good enough to give us. Um, until I hit about the 12-minute mark, and I noticed the episode skipped about 3 minutes.
Oh.
I wasn't sure how much time was lost there. I did message Alex about it, but I guess they didn't go back and check.
I went and I then proceeded to load it up
Hmm.
on IMDb TV, which is now called something else, and proceeded to fast forward the episode to just before that happened, and yeah,
Mm.
it cut an entire scene.
Ah.
And that whole scene is between Georgie and her mother,
Oh. So
where
it's the missed minutes started with the professor and ended with the professor. So I thought it was all just one scene.
no, it was not. There's a jump in there where
Hmm.
she's talking to her mother, who is once again being, well, if he turns himself in, and of course she's like, he'll tear him apart, and then brings up the fact that while everybody was ducking, he was smiling.
Hmm.
And and after that, it's actually that which has her looking and thinking. You
So
see
that
her
that gives
actually
more context to the scene later on when she's like, the person who clued me into your odd behavior thought you had gone mad.
correct.
I
That's
do wonder how
exactly
that
what it was.
happened. Normally,
But
when
yeah,
something like that happens, I'd have noticed. Oh well.
I noticed it, and I actually had to go back because I wanted to see how much was missing. If it was 10 seconds,
Hmm.
it was now matter mine, but that was like a scene and a half.
Okay.
So I'm like,
Hmm.
nope. But
Hmm.
I just wanted to bring that up because that was character development right there. It was still
Mhm.
a
Hmm.
talking head scene, but it was very important because, earlier you would have thought Georgie's mother would have just dismissed her as
Hmm.
going off, but she's actually listening to her and thinking,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is good development because it's a definite positive change in that character.
So that was Matt's least favorite thing overall.
Then we go to Alex.
Yep.
Um. Let's see. Um. Honestly, the aside, the whole like sort of subplot, but not really, with Darius and Drake goes nowhere.
It
Because it's
does.
just like they have a conversation and then he shows up and he's like, "Well, no, fuck you," and
It,
it's
it,
like,
it it's
"Oh,
not. It's
what?"
giving Darius some character development because it's giving
Mm,
him the opportunity to
Um,
be a rat-faced fink, to
eh,
turn on
mm,
everybody, and instead he uses that to spit in the face of the cops.
he was our
mm.
least liked character up to that moment. So, I think many people would have kind of been expecting, we have no idea what Darius is going to do.
And instead
I
he
guess it's one
pulls.
of the detriments of me watching the wrong episode first, so I'm like, well, very clearly he's not turning on them, so I'm just waiting to see where it's going. uh,
It was just a character development scene, which was what it was. It's something that was needed.
Mhm.
Um,
mm,
Bill.
So mine is, and this comes up in multiple scenes, so I'm counting it. All of their observations are based on this security footage that's supposedly from a security camera taken on scene. Not like the cut news version or whatever, but there's a jump cut in it, and every time it comes up on screen, I was like, it's security camera footage with a jump cut from K-9 to Drake. How does that happen with a security camera? Security cameras don't work like that. And I mean, obviously, from a meta perspective, I know that they literally took a scene from earlier in the episode, cut it, and then repasted it using special effects or whatever.
Now,
But from an in-universe perspective, it makes no sense.
Now, if they were doing that and it was like you saw camera 9, camera 10,
Right, yeah, that would work a lot better.
Yeah.
somebody had already taken it and spliced together the footage, that would be something else.
Right.
But it's supposed to be taken from one security cam and failing. Okay, so you didn't touch on either of the two things that were issues with me.
Okay.
Number one was the visual effects, and I talked about this with Bill earlier.
You noticed some stuff I didn't notice.
Visual effects took a downward spiral even for this episode, or even for the series in this episode. There is one point where they're watching this footage, I think, that Georgie is petting the K-9 model, and it's obviously CGI'd overlaid the flying K-9 over the model, but they forgot to fix the ears. So you actually see two pairs of ears doing two different things. And every time they cut to the K-9 assassin, it looked like somebody dropped the resolution down to like PlayStation 3 levels. No, PlayStation 2 levels.
I was gonna say PlayStation 3. Like, I mean,
PlayStation 3 would have been good for that era that this came out.
I was gonna say I haven't played enough modern games to know the difference between what PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 5 look like. It took me seeing modern games and then going back to realize that PS2 was not as good as I thought it was when it came out.
To that end, you could say early PS3.
My
early
other
PS3 is basically just high-end PS2.
My other issue is while every other character has shown character growth, Drake is still this one-dimensional character who has only one expression.
Well, no, he has smug and pissed off.
Okay, he has that, but in either case, he's sneering. He's like Snape. He just sneers at everything. And you really have to tell whether it's a smug sneer or an angry sneer.
I mean, I'd almost, given that I've been rewatching some early Dragon Ball Z, to me it feels like he's like Vegeta. He's either pouting or he's smug.
The Vegeta can back it up, and Drake makes a fake K-9 in order to get K-9 captured, and fails at that.
He is just this waste of space. And that kind of thing, falsifying evidence in any, judicial system, corrupt or not, tends to get you fired.
I am interested to see where the hell they actually go with that. Like, if there are any consequences. I can tell you there are none in the next episode, because the next episode has nothing to do with this. But
he is such an idiot, and he always is just sneering like Draco Malfoy. He's just... I just want to smack him one. But he shows zero growth and not really any other expressions. He could just be wearing a sign that says, "I am an asshole." Because that's all his character exudes. There's no, "Why am I an asshole?" There's no, "I'm an asshole to some people, but I'm nice to, family or friends."
Yeah.
No. He's just pure asshole. And I have said repeatedly during Doctor Who, I hate that kind of character. I hate the character that says, "Well, I'm evil." Why? Because I am. If you guys remember, what was it? Curse of the Red Oh God, it was a Matt Smith episode where the bad guy turned out to be this old lady that was killing people because she could.
Right.
And the whole thing was, I'm evil. Well, I don't like people because I don't. And I'm like, that's not cheating. Have something traumatic have happened to her as a kid that made her hate people. Something like that. All you need is 3 fucking lines. And the same thing applies here. He's an asshole, but we don't know why he's an asshole.
We still don't even know why he has like robot hands or whatever.
Right, and why he put his hands into something before.
Obviously, Darth Vader chopped it off.
And yeah, I mean, if he had some freaking like extraterrestrial experience as a kid that made him exceedingly xenophobic, so he's basically like Mr. Croker from frickin' Fairly Odd Parents. I will prove the existence of aliens, kind of thing. That would be one thing. It at least gives you a character reason. But no, he's just this smug asshole xenophobe, and we don't know why.
Because now I'm just thinking of him almost like a discount Dr. Claw.
Kind of.
So I'm sitting here while we were talking trying to find, but apparently his age is undisclosed. But he had been one episode of a show 5 years earlier, so I think as a child. And then other than that, this was his first thing as other than a stunt actor.
I think he should have stick to stunt acting, unless that's the direction. Because yeah, something there hasn't developed this character.
That's where what I think is a combination of youth, inexperience, and based on everything else we've seen in the show, the direction is probably part of it as well.
And honestly, this role should have gone to an actor that was slightly older.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are times when I feel like he's young. He seems like he's at minimum younger than the oldest one was Darius. What the fuck is his name? Darius?
Yeah, Darius.
Yeah. At the very least, I'm pretty sure he's younger than Darius. I noticed that Wikipedia says he's 6 feet tall, and I don't think he's 6 feet tall in this show. So I think he might still be under 18.
Yeah, the person that should be in this role should have at least been in their like early 30s to give that,
he should have looked like he was a rival to June and not her potential son.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go for favorite scenes.
All right, so Matt's favorite scene was Darius proving he's not a shithead, even if he often acts against the group sometimes. He put himself on the line, fending off the robots in the lab, and helping the others to lose more of the robots in the sewers. I can agree with... I mean, that sounds like more than one moment, but yeah, I think I can agree with that. Darius, proving his worth to the team.
All right, Alex.
As much as I don't care for the romance stuff in this, the conversation between Georgie and the professor was something about her just saying, "Oh, I'm not." She's more so worried about Starkey and all that, and that kind of thing. That conversation and the moment of good news is you learn to cope with it better when you're older. The bad news is it never gets any better. As far as it still hurts.
It hurts just as much.
Yeah. You see,
that
the thing
was very there you go.
Normally, the romance stuff was always just kind of meh, but that was a genuine conversation.
Yeah,
it felt
so it's more like
genuine.
the execution. Yeah, the execution in this was better than previous attempts. Funnily enough, I would have actually preferred this to be the first mention of it as well.
It would have been better than the sudden like love at first sight.
Yeah.
It would have been better to have it, start as friendship and grow. But
Yeah.
I think it started off as like fan obsession because didn't she know about his like his activism or whatever before they met?
a little bit.
Hmm.
But anyway, that
So
was
on to
actually
me.
one of mine. Yes.
Okay. So for mine, I am going to say the god damn it, what's Griffin getting his doctor moment with making the robots dance instead of chasing them, and Drake just like
What the
fucking
fuck?
Drake is just like impotently angry at him, but doesn't know what to do. He's like, I blame you for this. He was like, blame me for what? That just kids being kids. I don't know what you could possibly be talking about. Ah,
That did.
I'll get you next time, Gadget.
Yeah. It's funny because at first I'm like, I could see that being a Matt Smith Dr. Moment, but then I'm like, you know what? There could probably be some other ones, but I'm not sure who.
Oh God, that Patrick Troughton,
Oh
Pertwee would
yeah.
have done it. Baker would have done it, but probably would have offered a jelly baby somewhere in there.
Yes. You seem stressed. Would you care for a jelly baby?
Colin Baker would have done it. McCoy would have done it. Smith would have done it. Yeah, it's mostly Smith in the new era.
Hmm.
Tennant, I think, would have pulled it off too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, Rand, do you have a second? You said you said one of yours was taken.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I in the same vein, like the same conversation between the professor and Starkey. But that one wasn't quite as poignant. So I'm not sure whether to include that or not.
That's the one that got cut in half in the
Yeah, but I watched
cut
the
that I
full
watched.
version. Yeah,
Right.
it was nearly done.
Oh yeah, so Matt and I are the only ones who haven't seen
Actually,
the
I think the scene I liked the most was the one that was cut between Georgie and her mother. Because again, it really wound up humanizing Georgie's mother.
Hmm.
And none of you could say anything about it because you didn't see it.
Well, Alex would have seen it because they have the DVD.
Yeah.
They're not going to say anything about it.
Okay.
I mean, like, yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't a. It was like basically the one that I could have almost gone with, and then but I just went with the conversation with Griffin instead.
All right, least favorite scene.
Right. So Matt says it looked like they were comparing recordings that were going on at the same time, and despite evidence that there was another K-9 running around, they were still arguing whether or not K-9 had gone crazy. The only time this episode where footage and dialogue hit a weird snag.
Yeah, nobody ever comes up with the concept of there being a fake K-9. The closest was Georgie, who speculated another one might have come through the machine, but is quickly shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because for the first time in a dozen episodes or whatever we're at, the damn machine didn't activate.
And it's.
No one said it could have been a fake, a drone shaped to look like K-9.
See, the first one, it was unclear, but by the time they were having that second argument about the car, it certainly seemed more likely that there was a second one than that. And well, of course, well, maybe somebody else's scene is what I'm about. It was what I almost just said, so I'll shut up.
All right. So, Alex.
Yep.
I'm going to go with the car being fucked with because that should have been evidence enough that it wasn't out like the main K-9 because K-9 would not be
K-9 would
like
not use so
short-sighted enough.
K-9 wouldn't use so atrocious spelling.
Yes, that.
Yeah, K-9 would not have said. K-9 wouldn't have wrote anything. K-9 would have just blasted out the windshield.
Or if he did, he would have been K9 was or K9 is here. Not K
Yeah.
K9 was here. Which I
Yeah.
can't even pull off the accent to do properly because it's not, you need the right accent to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, K9 would not have said K9 was here. He would have just. You would again, like I don't even think he would have written anything. He would have just blasted the thing to bits.
Like I definitely need them to know that K9 did this, but for some
Yeah.
reason was also
Yeah, that
acting
is-
extremely
I mean-
un-K9ly.
I mean, the fact that you saw that, it's like, oh, so whoever programmed this thing is the same person that programmed the cops. Like, who else?
Yeah.
Good
Who
point.
else uses K9 was
Right.
here?
Yeah.
They're running on the same software.
And yes, I can do that accent. I have a friend in England that actually says I'm more English than him.
Yeah.
Because we'll be talking about something and I'll be making a reference.
And actually, in follow up to that, I'm going to go with that scene that I cut myself off for mentioning, but especially since you took the K9 was here thing, I'm definitely I'm going to pick that as my least favorite scene because they're arguing over whether or not K9 did this, and he was literally was just untied, doesn't know why he was untied, but he at least knows when he was untied. And he just looms ominously behind them and doesn't say a word, even though he obviously has sensitive enough ears to know exactly what they were talking about. And he just is like, "How guilty can I look? Let me just try to look extra guilty."
Yeah. But
Why?
it's also like, yeah, it's also like when this was happening,
And it actually
they were
reminds me
with
of that.
him. So
I was going to say, it just actually reminded me of that scene from Roger Rabbit. You could have taken that off at any time, only when it was funny. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's like it's one of those things of like, well, wait, but they were with K9, the real K9, when that happened. So there's no way
K9 was
that
in a
would
room
have been...
by himself with the tripwire.
Yeah. But like even then it's just like, okay, so why would you believe that it would like yeah, it's like K9's not helping, but it's also just like why like it's one of those things where it really is just like, okay, with everything you know about this character that you've spent, I don't know, months with at this point. I don't know what the progression of time in the show is.
A
But
week at
like,
least.
yeah. Like with the amount of time you spent with this character, why would you think that he would even do that? Let alone like unprovoked and like all that. When he's trying to be super cooperative, why would he go off and then do that? Like, and because I don't even think anyone like maybe like someone tries to make the argument, oh well, maybe he's like faulty, but like they push that aside really quick, and it's like that would have maybe made sense, but I don't know.
Okay. So we at me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and this is just annoying on the level of thuggery that they tend to act like in this series. They make a big deal about him getting this warrant to arrest K-9 through there. And when they storm the thing, it's like, we have a warrant for his arrest. Georgie goes, let's see the warrant. And they just grab her.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
mean,
I was kind of because they were like, what's it? They were like, who's K-9? So I don't know if like the robot cop was like, oh, this girl yelling at us must be K-9. I wouldn't put it past them because their competence level is negative.
I know. Nobody would make a robot cop that stupid.
It's
and yet somehow they have.
It's like, it's a funny thing of like, it's a fascist government anyway, so why would they care to show? But it also is like, I mean, she's just asking to see it. If you're not producing it, then it seems like you just don't have it. You think this smug prick would want to be like, here you go then.
Exactly. It's out of character not to show it.
Yeah.
I mean, think of Walter Peck from Ghostbusters. Because he's that same smug asshole, only better acted. And when he had it, he slapped it against the guy and listed the charges, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
He was proud of that goddamn warrant. You would think the same thing would have been happening here. But no. Instead of producing the papers and slamming them against, he's just, the thug just...
Like,
Seriously,
if the
who
character was
programs
written
these guys?
different, yeah, like if the character was written differently to just be like a complete, just complete stereotypical fascist overlord type character, then I could get them being like, I don't need to fucking show you. Like, who are you? You're in some insignificant peon. I don't need to show you anything. I just have it and I can do what I want. But given this guy's smug attitude, it's like he would want to rub that in their face. So it's like, no, I am actually doing this legally. So screw you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it's just they really didn't film that particular scene right. Or write it right or something. Okay, final thoughts.
All right. So Matt said, outside of some small nitpicks, this has probably been one of the best episodes so far in the show. Hopefully things continue on this level of quality, but also do something to fix that pacing and sometimes stilted dialogue. Get that perfected, and the show could finally hit a 5 sometime soon.
All right. Alex?
Yeah, I did like this. Yeah, like as much as some of the issues we have with it, I'm willing to give this one a bit more of a pass than some of previous episodes, just by virtue of it feels like they're actually trying. Whereas some, it just feels like they were just leaning way too hard into it being a kid show. This feels more like, okay, let's actually try to not talk down to kids in this particular episode for the most part. There's still like a few slips here and there, but yeah, like overall, I would still say this is at least good. And yeah, I can agree with Matt that this is one of the better episodes we've had so far.
All right.
Right. So yeah, this was definitely an enjoyable episode, more so than we've come to expect for K-9. I don't know if you mentioned it while I was AFK or probably not. But we even had a moment where K-9 was giggling like William Hartnell, which didn't come up during the favorite scenes because there were other things to talk about. The only real issue I would have that we haven't mentioned is that, well, I mean, we kind of did mention, was that the last act was kind of rushed in the sense that, like, K-9 just kind of figures out that there's another K-9 there, and that happens while it's, like, trying to shoot his friends. So maybe a little bit more into that reveal would have been nice. Um, but other than that, I think most of the episode was pretty well handled. Uh, Definitely, uh, gave a lot more growth to Darius than we've had in the entire show so far. Uh, so yeah, no major complaints here either.
All right. Um, in my opinion, the characters are settling nicely. The writing is understanding the characters and is evolving its character bible with the changes made to the characters, which I'm enjoying. That actually puts it better over some major productions I know. Voyager. But and that's good. It still is falling short in other areas. Special effects are one of them. But and I'm not talking they have to be great. They just have to be clean.
Mm.
And other than that, no, this seems to be. I agree. This is probably one of the better episodes we've had. Let's rate it. Our
Matt says
final rating.
4.
Matt says a 4. Matt gets a 4. Alex.
Oh. For a second there, I was almost willing to give it a bit more credit and give it a bit higher, but I'm probably just going to agree with Matt and give it a 4 because there's probably just enough that weighs it back down.
All right.
Yeah, I would say it's demonstrably better than last week's, although it's still not like high Sarah Jane level. So I would say 4.0 as well.
And I too will give it a 4. I found it by and large enjoyable. Giving this one a solid 4.0, which will put it in our rankings at the monster of our stuff, number 203 of 423 things reviewed. Oh, it is on par with Torchwood, Captain Jack Harkness, K-9 the Bounty Hunter, Torchwood Everything Changes, Sarah Jane, The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, Sarah Jane, The Revenge of the Slovene, Class, co-owner of a Lonely Heart, Bravish Heart. There's a lot of 4s, but it is better than Sarah Jane Adventures Invasion of the Bane, K-9 and Company, and is not as good as Torchwood End of Days, Torchwood Sleeper, and Sarah Jane Adventures Warriors of the Kudlak. So there you have it. 203 of 423 things reviewed. That is all we have to say about K-9 Jaws of Orthrus.
All right. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please let us know in the comments. What did you think about this story? Did you agree with us, or did you feel the rating should be higher or lower? And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to get our exports on YouTube every week, or follow us on Twitch to get our new streams. Every Tuesday night. And also, don't forget to tell us what you think about the new Doctor. What are your hopes or expectations?
All right, so next week we're going to take off for our between season break. Catch our breath. Maybe do a little work on our opening title. Maybe not. And then we're going to kick off season 18 on the 24th with the animated reconstruction of Galaxy 4. Written by William Ems and starring William Hartnell as the Doctor, Maureen O'Brien as Vicky Pallister, and Peter Purves as Stephen Taylor. Now, we've already technically reviewed Galaxy 4, but we're going to take a second look at it with animation. I believe that was in our The Ugly section of The Good and Bad and the Ugly a few seasons back. Let's see if we like it better.
Yep.
See you in 2 weeks.